Hello, this is the first week reflection for the Math 10 quarter. This is going to be a sort of reflection on the most important thing that I learned in the first week of class to this week. So, yeah. This reflection, I think the most important thing that we learned this week in class is how to find the least common multiple, or the LCM of two numbers. Now you do this using prime factorization, and I think it's the most important thing because it's hard. It's probably one of the hardest things that we learned this week. That and also finding the greatest common factor. So those two would be, but for me this one was a bit tougher, so I went with this for the reflection. But anyways, we're going to start with the easiest example of this, and we're going to explain it step by step how to do it. That way I can remember, but also, it's reflection. So here it is. The least common multiple is basically going to be the number that two numbers are going to have. So if you're multiplying, for example, here, number 15 and 16, what is the first number that they are going to have in common when you multiply up the scale? So 15 times 1 is 15, 15 times 2 is 30. Eventually, that number will be the same as 16. And which number is that going to be? So here's how you figure this out. First, you need to find the prime factorization of the number. Now, for 15 and 16, it's pretty easy because 15 can only be divided besides 1 by 3. It can be 5 times 3. So those are your first two numbers. On the prime factorization of 15 would be 5 and 3. And for 16, it's the same. You can divide it by 2. You would start, so it's 8 and 2, but then 8 is not a prime number, so you can divide that as well again into 4 and 2. And if you really want to, which you have to actually for this, you need to divide it one more time to be 2 and 2. So you have 4 2s on this side, a 5 and a 3 on the other side. Now, the next step that you would do is you want to put those all together here. So here we have for 16 the 4 2s, and for 15 the 5 and the 3. If the numbers have any in common, you're going to want to eliminate those ones. But in this case, it's simpler because they don't have any numbers in common. There's no prime factorization that is the same, so we can leave it all the same here. Now, all you need to do is multiply all these numbers together. You can do that in steps here. So you have 5 times 3 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, which in this case is just 5 times 3, and then times 2 to the power of 4. So 2 to the power of 4 is equal to 16. As 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 would be 8, times 2 would be 16. And then you have 5 times 3, which is equal to 15. So it's 15 times 16, which is 240, which means that the first number that 15 and 16 have in common on their multiplication list is 240. That is the LCM of the numbers 15 and 16. If we move to a more difficult example, we have the numbers 40 and 42. Now for here, you're going to need to use the second step, which is eliminating the numbers that they have in common, but we'll get to that after we find the prime factorization of the two numbers. So we start with 20 and 2 for 40, but 20 is not a prime number, so you would divide it again by 2, as 2 is the first prime number you want to be dividing it by. You would go up from 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and just keep going. And since 20 can be divided by 2, you would go 10 times 2, and 10 can also be divided by 2, which is 5 and 2. So you have 3 2s and a 5, and that is the prime factorization of 40. Now over on this side, 42 can be divided by 2, which is 21 and 2. And since 21 is also 7 and 3, you would put that together. So now you have a 7, a 3, and a 2 on this side. Now here, you'd have to use the next step, which is eliminating the common prime factorization numbers. So here, you have a 5, a 2, and 3 2s on the side of 40. And on 42 side, you have a 7, a 3, and a 2, and a 2. So here, you have to eliminate 1, 2 from both sides because it's a common number. Now, you have to remember that. That's an important step. You want to eliminate anything that is in common. So if there was another 2 on both sides, you would eliminate that. But here, there's only one number in common. It's both 2. So you take that out, and now you get left with 5 times 2 times 3 times 7, which in this case, you can do the two sides together, which is 10 times 21, which is equal to 210. That means that 40 and 42's first number in common on their multiplication list would be 210. So that basically is the LCM of the numbers. It's not super difficult once you get the part down, but when you have it in with the greatest common factor and some of the other things, you have to remember it can be a little bit confusing. But yeah, it's not too bad. So